Hi dear students, Santosh here, and today I am going to describe in detail the lecture number 4, which deals with the characteristics of the sewage, and this is very important topic in wastewater engineering or sanitary engineering. I am once again congratulating those who has subscribed my channel and also requesting the others to subscribe my channel. So let us start this chapter, but please watch this lecture till the end to get the ideas cleared in sanitary or wastewater engineering. So let us start this chapter. First of all, we are going to discuss the characteristics of the sewage. So what are the different characteristics of the sewage in general? So sewage is a dilute mixture of various types of the waste from the residential, public and industrial places. So this is the definition, that is sewage is a dilute mixture and it is obtained from the various waste from the public as well as residential as well as industrial places. The characteristics and composition of the sewage mainly depend upon the source. The sewage mainly contains two types of material. First type of material is organic and second type of material is inorganic, and they are available in the dissolved or suspended or the colloidal form. This is very important. Usually large proportion of the waste matter is in organic form and which is attacked by saprophytic microorganisms. So what is saprophytic organisms or microorganisms? These are the organisms which feeds upon the dead organic matter or dead body. That is very important. This activity of the organisms causes decomposition of the organic matter and destroy them. Sewage also contains the various types of the bacteria, protozoa, algae and fungi. That is also important. Some of these are the pathogens. Pathogens means creating the diseases and which are harmful to the human and animal life. Before the design of any sewage treatment plant, the knowledge of the characteristics and composition of the sewage is very essential. Therefore, in this lecture or in this video, we are going to discuss the characteristics of the sewage. And the characteristics of the sewage are broadly divided into three categories. First is the physical characteristics such as color, odor, etc. Second is the chemical characteristics and third is the biological characteristics. First of all, we are going to discuss the physical characteristics of the sewage. What are the physical characteristics of the sewage? First is the color. Fresh domestic sewage has a soap solution color. That is very important, and such a question is asked in the competitive type of objective type of examinations. With the time of the color of the sewage began to get black as the decomposition starts. When the organic matter decomposes, then the color of sewage transforms from the soap solution color to black color. The color of the septic sewage is more or less black. The color of the industrial sewage depends upon the chemical processes used in the industries. That is major part. Odor. Fresh domestic sewage has slightly soapy or oily odor because it contains the soapy and oily matter. But the stale sewage has an offensive odor of hydrogen sulfide and other sulfur compounds. In the normal temperature, when the sewage passes through the sewers, the offensive smell will start after 3 hours and which reaches the climax after the 6 hours. So after 6 hours, the odor of the sewage is unbearable in certain places due to hydrogen sulfide. Temperature of the sewage. Generally, temperature of the sewage is more than that of water supply or more than that of water in the water pipeline. Why it is slightly higher than that of water supply? Because when the sewage flows through the closed conduits, the temperature further rises, resulting into increase in the viscosity and bacterial activity. The temperature of the sewage varies with the season also. If the temperature of the sewage is below the normal temperature, in such a cases it will indicate the infiltration of ground or a surface water, because if water is added into the sewage, the temperature reduces, but in case of higher temperature, it indicates the addition of industrial sewage. The next physical property of the sewage is turbidity, and the turbidity of the sewage is directly depend upon the quantity of solid matters present in the sewage in suspension state. That is very important, presence of solids in suspension state. Then we are going to discuss the solids. The sewage contains more than 99.9% of water and 0.1% of the solid. That is very important and asked in the objective type of examinations. These solids are present in the sewage in suspended, dissolved and colloidal states. These three states are important: suspended, dissolved and colloidal. Suspended solids, which can be filtered out on an asbestos material or on filter paper. So suspended solids are to be filtered. The filtered sewage is evaporated and the residue is dissolved solid. The residue of the filtered sewage is the dissolved solids. And colloidal solids, which are not settleable, suspended solids which will not settle in the sewage. So that is very important. So colloidal matter is the smallest form, and dissolved solids and suspended solids are as discussed earlier. So one must remember all these three states. Then we are going to discuss the chemical characteristics. Sewage contains complex organic matters derived from the urine, feces, etc. and inorganic chemicals. Normally, fresh sewage is alkaline in nature. This question is asked in the competitive type of examination, but tends to acidity as it becomes stale. The organic compounds can be divided as containing nitrogen and free from the nitrogen. So the solid matter is divided into two categories. First is the organic matter and second is inorganic matter. And organic matter is divided into another two categories. First is the containing nitrogen and second is free from nitrogen. Then urea, proteins, amines and amino acids are the nitrogenous compounds, means which contains the nitrogen, whereas fats, soaps and carbohydrates are the non-nitrogenous compounds. So one must remember which are the nitrogenous compounds and which are the non-nitrogenous compounds. The sand, gravel, debris, etc. are inorganic matters present in the sewage which come from the street washing, kitchen washing or courtyard washing. Then the salts and alkalis as inorganic matter are also present in the sewage which comes from the bathroom, kitchens and industrial plants. So one must remember all these matters regarding chemical characteristics. Then third characteristics which is important, that is biological characteristics. Sewage contains large quantity of bacteria which comes from the excremental matter. All the bacteria present in the sewage are not harmful. Harmful bacteria, as earlier discussed, these are the pathogens. More quantity of harmless bacteria which helps to treat the sewage and reduce the cost of treatment plants, means bacteria helps to reduce the severity of the sewage. Only pathogenic bacteria which are discharged by the sick persons having infectious diseases such as cholera, typhoid, dysentery and diarrhea, etc. are harmful to the human health and give difficulty at the treatment plants. All the organisms can be broadly classified as a macroscopic and microscopic. One must know what is macroscopic and which is microscopic. The following are the main living organisms in the sewage. There are two groups of bacteria. One are the higher bacteria and second is the lower bacteria. The higher bacteria are the harmless and lower bacteria are the harmful. The disease causing bacteria are known as pathogens and which come under the category of lower bacteria. One must remember that. And micron is the unit for measuring these bacteria, and 1 micron is called as a micros and equal to 10 raised to minus 3 mm. Okay, so one must remember and go through these notes to know what are the bacteria, what are the higher type of or higher bacteria, and what are the lower bacteria. The pathogen or pathogenic bacteria come in sewage from the discharges of the sick people, as discussed earlier, having infectious diseases. The pathogens may cause typhoid fever, then paratyphoid fever, and dysentery and cholera. Therefore, during the treatment, it is necessary to kill all the pathogens. Okay. Algae. Then we are going to discuss the algae. The algae is the unicellular plants containing chlorophyll and often additional pigments, on which these have various names. These have additional pigments also and chlorophyll also. The presence of pigments enable the algae to utilize the radiant energy. The physiological process involved is called as a photosynthesis. You know that Prakash Sansleshan, in Marathi it is called as a Prakash Sansleshan, and helps algae in absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. So algae deals with the photosynthesis process. Okay, and blue-green algae, green algae, then diatoms and yellow algae are the various varieties of the algae commonly found in the sewage. Okay, then we are going to discuss the fungi or fungus. Fungi, the cells of fungi do not contain chlorophyll and pigments. They are usually colorless and are filamentous, having branches. The yeast, bacteria and molds come under the group of fungi. The size of mold flora usually present in the sewage is large, and the molds are dependent fully on the organic matter for obtaining their energy. They have the property of decomposing starches, sugars, cellulose, fats, proteins, higher alcohols and nitrogenous substances. When they are present in large number, they are called as a mycelium and resemble like a cat's tail. So that is important. They resembles like a cat's tail. Then protozoa. Protozoa, these include all the unicellular animals. These various types of protozoa, such as a amoeboid or amoeba, we called it as a amoeba. Then coelite protozoa. These are the different types of protozoas. They move by means of the false feet. That is very important. Mostly all types of protozoa are the bacteria eaters, and they destroy the pathogens. So protozoa are very important to destroy the pathogens. So that is important. And these are the animals. Then we are going to discuss the decomposition of the sewage. Sewage contains about 0.8% of the oxygen, which is necessary for livelihood of various types of organisms. The food material present in the sewage encourage the growth of some living organisms whose respiratory activities decrease the quantity of dissolved oxygens. When the quantity of oxygen from the sewage is just exhausted, the sewage is called stale. In the beginning, when some oxygen is present in the sewage, the aerobic action takes place. The organisms are utilizing the oxygen and form succumb. That is very important. As the sewage becomes stale, the anaerobic action starts, in which the bacteria start drawing oxygen contained in the organic matter, nitrates, nitrites and sulfates. Thus, the anaerobic decomposition is followed by aerobic decomposition. When the anaerobic decomposition is continuing, the sewage is known as a septic sewage. So, when aerobic action takes place, the sewage contains oxygen. When anaerobic action takes place, the sewage is in stale position or septic position. That is very important. During aerobic decomposition, the putrefaction takes place, and the foul gases such as hydrogen sulfide, odor of various offensive substances along with the methane and carbon dioxide starts coming out from the septic or a stale sewage. Therefore, precautions should be taken while designing the treatment plant so that the sewage must reach sludge digestion tank before it becomes septic. That is very important. So there should not be any objectionable odor. That is important before reaching it to the sludge digestion tank. These are the two figures that I am not going to describe fully. You should go through the books and remember that first is the nitrogen cycle, and which is aerobic, and second is the nitrogen cycle, which is anaerobic, and which contains the atmospheric air and natural water. It contains the living animal and living matters. It contains the final product of decomposition and how decomposition takes place. All this forms into the cycle form, and these cycles must be important. That is waste product, then decomposition, then oxygen is required for decomposition. All these stages are mentioned here. One must go through these all stages. Okay, so one must study these two cycles to get the more ideas clear about the characteristics of the sewage, and especially chemical characteristics or biological characteristics. Then examination of the sewage. Before the designing of the treatment plant and disposal of the sewage in a body of water, it is necessary to have the information regarding the various constituents of the sewage. The examination of sewage is necessary for following purposes: to know the strength, character, constituents and the condition of the sewage to be treated, for laying down the line of treatment and the type of disposal work to be adopted. That is very important. To control and regulate the performance of the sewage treatment works from day to day, suiting that sewage, and to determine the final effluent obtained after the treatment within the limit of self-purification or not. And that things are very important to decide the type of treatment plant. To determine and interpret the behavior of the natural water in which the sewage is finally discharged, that they are capable of tapping the lid of effluent with their pollution, or they may be cleared that sewage with their self-purification power. The examination of the sewage can be broadly classified into following three categories, such as it similar as that of characteristics of the sewage: physical examination, chemical examination, and bacteriological examination or biological examinations. But one must remember it as a bacteriological examinations. Physical examination includes the following tests. For temperature, the temperature of the sewage is measured by means of ordinary thermometers. The saturation values of the solids and gases that can be dissolved into water, and the rates of chemical, biochemical and biological activities also determined on the basis of the temperature. At warm temperature, the biological activities are more, whereas for the low temperature, they are dormant. Thermometer used for determining the temperature of the sewage should be able to read up to 0.1 degrees Celsius. That is very important. The accuracy or least count is 0.1 degrees Celsius. Turbidity, as discussed earlier, it is caused due to suspended matters and colloidal matters, and can be determined by turbidity rod or Jackson's turbidimeter as described in water supply engineering. Color, it indicates the condition of the sewage as a fresh, stale or septic as discussed earlier. The fresh sewage is light brown or soap color, which becomes darker as the sewage tends towards the stale or septic condition. This test also shows the presence of industrial waste, which has color depending upon the discharges of various industrial processes. Odor, it also indicates whether the sewage is fresh or stale or septic, as the foul smell starts coming immediately after the sewage becomes stale or septic. The odor readily helps in ascertaining the condition of the sewage. Odor also indicates the presence of certain chemical wastes of the industries. That is very important. So one must remember the temperature, second is the color, third is the odor. These are the physical characteristics, and physical test is to be conducted to determine the physical characteristics of the sewage. The second is the chemical examinations. The chemical examinations of the sewage is done only on only for those compounds which have sanitary significance. Following are the main purposes of the chemical test: to determine the state of decomposition of the sewage, to determine the presence of toxic or other similar substances which may cause difficulties at treatment plants or which may kill the aquatic life of the stream in which sewage is disposed of. That is very important. The load which the treatment plant have to bear the required efficiency, the maximum load put on discharging river or a stream, whether they shall be able to attain the self-purification as discussed earlier by natural processes or not. Following tests are to be carried out in chemical examination of the water. First is the solids as discussed earlier: total solids, volatile solids, suspended solids, organic or inorganic solids. Then biochemical oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. These two terms all the time asked in the examination. What is the biochemical oxygen demand and what is the chemical oxygen demand? Then stability and relative stability. Then chlorides and sulfides. Then chlorine demand, that is also important, and then nitrogen. Then pH value is also important. You know that sewage as the early stage is alkaline, but at the latter stage it become acidic. Then greases, oils and fats. Then we are going to discuss the biochemical oxygen demand, and which is termed as a BOD. It has stated that the presence of oxygen is necessary for the livelihood of the organism as discussed earlier. The aerobic action continues till the oxygen is present in the sewage, means it is in fresh sewage. As the oxygen exhausts, the anaerobic action begins, due to which foul smell starts coming. Therefore, indirectly, the decomposable matters require oxygen, which is used by the organisms. The length of aerobic action can be increased if the percentage of oxygen is increased in the beginning and the BOD is satisfied. The biological oxygen demand, or biological, not it, the biochemical oxygen demand of the sewage is the quantity of oxygen required for biochemical oxidation of the decomposable matter at specified temperature and within the specified time. So this is the oxygen demand required for biochemical oxidation of the decomposable matter. That is very important, and within specified temperature and within specified time. During the natural decomposition, the life activities of the organisms are stimulated by high temperatures and decreased at the low temperature. Therefore, the temperature and time of the BOD are to be specified. At the higher temperature, the biological activities are increases. At lower temperature, it decreases and the bacteria become dormant. That is very important. The standard time and temperature for the test in America for the BOD is 5 days. The time specified is 5 days and temperature is 20 degrees respectively. But in India, it is conducted at 5 days, but the temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. That is important. That is the temperature difference, and sometimes asked in examinations also. Then we are going to discuss the chemical oxygen demand, or COD. This test is a measure of amount of carbon in organic matter of the sewage. Measure of amount of carbon. It is useful in identifying the performance of the various steps of the treatment plant. It is useful in determining the strength of the industrial waters in the sewage, which cannot be determined by the BOD test. Means that amount of or strength of industrial waste which cannot be determined by the BOD, it should be determined by the COD test. The chemical oxygen demand test is the amount of oxygen also required for chemical oxidation of the organic matter. With the help of the strong chemical oxidants, this test can be used for the same purpose as that of BOD test after taking into account its limitations. The limitation of this test is inability to differentiate between the biologically oxidizable and biologically inert material. That is very important. Limitation of the test, one must remember. COD determination has an advantages over the BOD determination, that it takes only 5 hours as compared with the BOD test, which required 5 days as discussed earlier. This test is also easy and cannot be affected by the interference as in BOD test. So these are the advantages of COD test over the BOD test. 5 hours only required instead of 5 days. This test is easy also and cannot be affected by the interferences as in BOD test. Then we are going to discuss the biological test. The biological test of the sewages or the natural water courses are carried out to determine the types of the bacteria and biological life present in them. Biological tests are done with the microscope. The bacteria are allowed to develop under favorable conditions in culture media. The culture media may be solid or liquid. The culture media used to develop the bacteria may be a solid or a liquid. The sewage is added into culture media and kept in incubator at specified temperature and time suiting the bacteria. The bacteria start forming the colonies of descendant cells in the solid media, which is seen by the microscope. The kind of the bacteria is directly seen by the microscope and its size is measured by the stage micrometer. The self-purification of water directly depends upon the presence of the bacteria, fungi, algae and protozoa as discussed earlier. The presence of the pathogens indicates the degree of pollution of the stream. If the number of pathogens are more, the pollution of the stream is more. That is very important. So, this is enough for this lecture of characteristics of the sewage. Now I am going to discuss you some matters in Marathi. प्रत्येक व्यक्तीचे, प्रत्येक पदार्थाचे, प्रत्येकाचे वेगवेगळे गुणधर्म असतात आणि हे सगळेच गुणधर्म चांगले असतील असं नाही किंवा सगळे गुणधर्म वाईट असतील असं नाही आहे. हे सगळे गुणधर्म तुम्ही लक्षात घ्यायचं आहे आणि त्या सगळ्या गुणधर्मांचा अभ्यास करून तुम्ही त्या व्यक्तीच्या किंवा त्या पदार्थाच्या चांगल्या गुणधर्मांचा उपयोग करून घ्यायचा आहे आणि वाईट गुणधर्मांवर काय उपचार करायचे हे शिकून घ्यायचं आहे. आणि थोडक्यात आयुष्य म्हणजे काय असतं, प्रत्येकाने आपल्या आयुष्यात आपले दोस्त कमवावेत आणि त्यांना चांगल्या आणि वाईट गुणांसोबत स्वीकार करावा. चांगल्या गुणांचा त्याचा आदर करावा, चांगले गुण फॉलो करावेत आणि त्याचे जर वाईट गुण असतील तर त्या वाईट गुणांना तुम्ही सोडून द्यायचं आहे किंवा त्याचे वाईट गुण सुधारायला बघायचं आहे. एवढंच बास. तुम्हाला सर्वांना स्पर्धा परीक्षेच्या शुभेच्छा, तुमच्या रेग्युलर अभ्यासाच्या शुभेच्छा आणि बाय बाय. भेटू पुढच्या लेक्चरला भेटू.